Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the sexiest of subjects, pensions. Today, I'm joined by Kyle, a pensions expert at Penfold, who's going to be taking us through everything we need to know about pensions. Kyle, welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So let's start at the start. What is a pension?
Okay, so at its most basic, I like to think of a pension as a tax-efficient way to save for your future. They come in many different shapes and sizes, but the main thing they all share the same is that you contribute while you're working in your life. It grows by investment and tax relief, and then when you're ready to stop working, you can withdraw your money to support your retirement.
And when should people start thinking about their pension?
The golden rule with pensions really is the earlier the better. The earlier you start contributing, even if it's just a little bit now, basically the less you'll have to contribute over your life and the more compound interest will take over. So very briefly, compound interest is essentially interest snowballing, where you get interest upon interest. Just as a kind of, example, the way we like to think about how, the power of starting early. If you have someone that started paying their pension at age 18 and contributed every year until they were 30 and then stopped contributing, so never paid in again for the rest of their life, at retirement, they would actually have more money in their pension than someone that started at 30 and paid in until their 60s.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what happens if you're a bit later on in life and you haven't started contributing to a pension yet? Is it too late?
Absolutely not. No, definitely not too late. I think a common thing that we see along with some of our savers at Penfold is people, and they kind of put it off when they're very young, think, hey, it's a long time away, and then as gradually they get older and they realise how useful a pension can be, they start to panic about it. Absolutely not too late to start, even if you are kind of approaching retirement age. The main thing you really have to do is you might have to contribute a little bit more of your income to kind of play catch up a little bit. But it's kind of like general investing, really. The old adage that best day to start putting money into your pension was yesterday, but the second best day is today.
Yeah, that's great, because I think some people can definitely freak out if it's
Absolutely,
quite late. Yeah. And it does feel like something you don't need to worry about till later in life, but it's good to get started early.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like anything, the earlier you start, the less you have to do.
What differentiates a pension from just, say, putting money aside into a savings account?
Yes, good question. So there are a number of differences. Really, I guess the main big difference between them is they both have different goals. So most savings accounts, like you get like a cash ISA or just a savings account with your bank, they tend to be for more shorter term saving, whereas pensions are all about long term, kind of looking to right over the horizon to your retirement. So when you put money into a bank account or a savings account, essentially giving that money to the bank, and in return they'll give you a set interest rate, which is normally around kind of 1% these days. And you can access that money kind of whenever you need to. However, pension is a little bit differently. So every time you pay into your pension, you're actually investing your money into the stock market or government bonds or anything like that. And the return you get depends on the performance of your investments. Obviously, the money's locked away for a bit longer as well, so you won't be able to access it straight away. But in kind of return for that, you normally get greater growth. So I think over the last 20 to 30 years, the kind of average annual growth you can expect from a pension is around 7%, which obviously compares quite favorably to a lot of savings accounts these days.
You mentioned investing there.
Yes.
So what are some of the other ways that your pension grows over its lifetime?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, every time you pay into your pension, you're essentially investing into something called a pension fund, which is a nice way to think about it really is just a big pile of money that is investing in various different things. So like I said, stocks, shares, government bonds, even property. Over time, the value of these underlying investments hopefully will grow. That's like things like the stock market. And as that grows, the value of your pension fund grows, meaning you get more money in your pension. And the great thing about pensions is to get tax relief. So every time you pay in, you're essentially paying in tax-free, and the government gives you a tax bonus at your marginal rate, which essentially, if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you get 25% bonus every time you pay in. So kind of over time, again, this adds up, and like we mentioned before about compound interest, this kind of growth scales and snowballs over time to give you a much greater return than if you just left your money under your mattress.
Yeah, so you're getting lots of help from different places.
Absolutely,
basically.
yeah. It's the government are really kind of keen behind pensions because, as I said, they give you so much tax bonuses and they give you huge allowances because they want people to make sure you're prepared for when they stop working.
Yeah, and the investing side of it kind of sounds a bit scary initially, but can you choose to invest it in different places? Say if you wanted to invest in more sort of ethical or like eco-friendly stocks and shares and things like that.
Yep, so most pension providers will offer you a variety of pension plans, which basically means just how your money is invested. A popular way of breaking them down is by their level of risk. So tend to, if you want to be a bit riskier with your investments, where the value of your pension might go up and down a little bit more in return for seeking higher growth. Or you can play it a little bit safer, go for a less risky investment where money might not grow as much, but it's going to be a little bit more steady. So this is kind of useful if you are approaching retirement and want to know how much you're going to have to spend. Helps keep things a little bit more stable. And as you mentioned, of course, another really popular way to invest your pension is sustainably. So a lot of people often fossil fuel free plans or environmentally conscious plans, where only invests in the companies that are kind of showing that they're doing the right thing for the environment, or say not investing in things like weapons or anything dodgy like that. And you can also actually, so at Penfold we offer a Sharia plan, which is only invest in companies that are Sharia compliant, so any kind of ethical or religious background you have. You can also make sure your investments in line with your ethics that way.
Okay, let's get stuck into like the nitty gritty.
Okay.
So can you tell me the difference between a workplace pension, a state pension, a personal pension, and a SIPP, which is a self-invested personal pension?
Let's do this.
Good luck.
So starting, I guess, with the workplace pension, I think anyone that's in full-time employment will be familiar with this. This is a pension that's set up by your employer that both you and your employer contribute to while you're working at the company. So, a typical example of this might be you go in, so you have to be over the age of 21 and working normally for 3 months to be eligible. And you're both paying a minimum of 8% of your pre-tax salary. That can be split between you and your employer. So the absolute minimum for you to contribute is 5%, where the employer has to contribute only 3%. Again, this will change by your jobs, and employers will be generous about to put in or even offer to match your input. And again, the work's just the way you've mentioned with the pension, so you're both paying over time. Hopefully the money grows, and then when you reach retirement age, you can draw this pension, the money out of your pension. Okay, so a personal pension is basically the same thing, but you don't benefit from the employer contributions. You pick your provider yourself, set up all the investments yourself, choose your plan, and again, pay in over your working life and then take it out when you retire. A SIPP, or a self-invested personal pension, is a kind of a more flexible kind of personal pension. It's built a little bit more for people that want more of a say in where their money goes. So where in a personal pension, you're kind of limited by these set funds that are all pre-built for you, a bit more hands-off. With a SIPP, you can kind of have more of a say in where your actual money is invested. You can pick individual investments within that pension. And then finally, the state pension. So the state pension works a little bit differently to the rest of them. I think this is something that people think about when they hear the word pensions, basically. So this is a payment from the government to you that starts when you reach state pension age, which is currently 66, but rising to 67 quite soon. Unlike the rest of the pensions we talked about, you don't have to contribute this to yourself. You do have to earn the state pension by making national insurance contributions over your life. So basically, any time you earn, I think it's over £184 a week, you would have paid national insurance as part of your tax. The way this works is you have to make a minimum of 10 years of national insurance contributions to get any state pension, and to get the full state pension, which is currently just over £9,300, you have to make 35 years of national insurance contributions.
Wow. So there you go. If you ever wondered what your national insurance was going towards, so state pension is part of it. That's great. So can you hold, or can you have several of these types of pensions at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. So as I say, if you are, it's quite common for people that are working to have a workplace pension that their employer contributes, and they may want to have a kind of personal pension on the side so they can have a bit more say where they're invested, or like I say, a SIPP, so they want to have their specific investments inside their pension. There's no real limit on the amount of pensions you can have. The only thing you're limited about, there is a £40,000 annual limit, which is how much you can contribute to your pensions each year.
When it comes to a workplace pension, is it right that there are two different types of workplace pension that you can get?
Yes. So the main types of workplace pension are what's called defined benefit, also called a final salary scheme, and defined contribution, which also gets called a money purchase scheme. So very briefly, the main difference is defined benefit is kind of gone out of fashion a little bit now. This is mainly in kind of public sector jobs and older style jobs, where this is rather than contributing yourself to your workplace pension, your employer will kind of contribute for you, build up the pot as and when you're there, and you'll get a guaranteed salary when you leave your job based on your kind of the final salary and how long you've worked there. So these are very, very expensive for companies to offer, so you don't see a lot of them these days. The most popular kind now is what's called a defined contribution. So this is where both you and your employer pay into your pension, which is then invested into your pension fund, and the actual value of your pension, rather than coming from any kind of guaranteed income, is defined by how much you paid in and how your investments perform.
obviously with like a personal pension or SIPP, you're opting into that. But you mentioned with the workplace pension that you sort of automatically enroll.
Yes.
Can you opt out of that if you wanted to?
Yes, you can opt out. So in the UK, we have what's called an auto-enrollment scheme, which is, like we said, when you join a company and you're eligible, you will be automatically enrolled into your pension. If you don't want to take part, you have to let your HR team or kind of people managers know that, hey, I'm not interested in this, opt me out of it, which they will do. That means you don't have to contribute to your pension, but you also won't benefit from your employer contributions. It's also worth knowing that legally, your employer must offer you the chance to re-enroll at least once a year. And if you stay with the company, I think it's for 3 years, you will be automatically re-enrolled again, meaning you have to opt out again if you still don't want to take part.
Yeah, I mean, and would you recommend opting out? I suppose, as you say, as you said earlier, the younger you start, the better it is.
Absolutely,
so you
yes.
would probably say, for the sake of like getting a bit more money each month, opting out is probably not a wise decision.
Yeah, we would always recommend people to stay opted in for a number of reasons. I mean, first of all, you kind of think about it, it's free money. This is stuff on top of your salary that your employer is paying towards your pension. Also, there's a very different schemes you can do workplace pension. That actually means you get to keep more of your money rather than sending off into things like income tax. You can reduce your actual take-home pay today, but the money instead goes into your pension, so you can get access to it tomorrow. So yeah, we would always recommend that you opt in unless you really, really feel passionate about not wanting a pension right now.
So for a lot of people in their 20s or 30s, they might be thinking more about buying a house, saving a deposit for a house rather than investing in their pension. How would you say people kind of manage that, those priorities?
We're never going to come in and go, right, stop everything else and put all your money in your pension, But it's that kind of thing about the more you put in now, the less you have to put in over your life. And it's always good, we always recommend people to have the kind of short, medium-term and long-term savings goals. So your pension is great for any long-term savings goals. With short-term things like saving for a holiday or super popular thing, saving for a deposit, you always recommend doing that as well and just kind of working out as things come up and you kind of become a bit more relevant to you, like buying a house, maybe put a bit more of your money towards that. But as soon as you've done that and that's taken care of, maybe put a bit more money into your pension. It's definitely important to just have some money going into your pension, basically the main takeaway from this. So even if you are saving for deposit and you're kind of scrimping up every last penny to try and get that as much as you possibly can, it's very, very important still to make sure you're putting at least some into your pension. Kind of a nice way to think about it, I guess, is with like a general rule of thumb for how much you should contribute, which is to take the age you start contributing to your pension and then half it and put that as a percentage of your pre-tax salary. So if you're 30 years old and you put 15% of your pre-tax salary into your pension every month, that's a kind of a good basis that should have you kind of help you massively on the way to getting a comfortable retirement.
So it's more about adjusting your priorities as you go, rather than kind of completely cutting one thing out.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's very tempting, as I say, to just kind of have, okay, I'm saving towards this and I'm saving towards this, but by just being a little bit more flexible and having kind of multiple things going on for short term, medium term and long term, you will see that you'll massively benefit as you get older.
What happens to your pension? Okay, this is two parts really to
Okay.
this question. What happens to your pension if you change jobs? Or what happens to your pension, say if you go from being a freelancer where you have a personal pension to going full-time with a PAYE job where you then have a workplace pension?
Okay.
How does that transition work?
So it kind of works in a similar way in both instances, really. So if you leave a job or become a full-time employee, you basically have two options of your pension. First thing, you can just kind of leave it where it is. It's not going to disappear or just magically vanish overnight. It will still remain there. You can just kind of leave it to kind of do its own thing. You will still get the growth from the investments inside your pension. But obviously, if you're leaving a job, your employer will no longer contribute. So you kind of leave it there, and when you're ready to access it in retirement, you can simply go and start withdrawing from it. Also, similarly, if you just leave it where it is, some providers will offer you the chance to kind of convert it into a personal pension, so you can keep contributing yourself, obviously without benefiting from your employer putting the money in. So you can kind of just take it with you and just kind of keep contributing it to keep building up over time. The other option you have is what's called a pension transfer. So some people, particularly if you had a few different jobs or a few different pensions in the past, can become quite tricky to manage it all. So you can combine all your pensions into one pot, so it's a little bit easier to manage and kind of comes with you over your life. The way you can do this really is fairly simple these days. You just need a few bits of information like your pension policy number, the name of your pension provider. You can take this to your new pension and say, hey, here's my old pension, I've got roughly this much saved, here's a policy number, I would like to bring this over, and your provider will get in touch with them and kind of transfer it over for you. It's very, very popular for a number of reasons. Like I mentioned, it makes it easier to manage. or less admin, you can potentially save on any fees. But it's definitely worth doing a kind of in-depth comparison before you decide to, because there's some things like exit fees where providers will charge you for leaving your pension early. You want to make sure you're not going to lose out in any way.
Yeah, that's something I actually need to start looking into,
Yes.
because I've got pensions all over the place at
Yes.
the moment, and I think it'd be really helpful to like get a handle on how much I've put in so far, what it looks like and things like that. I think it's, knowledge is power
Yes.
at the end of the day.
I think it's interesting as well that a lot of people, ask them the question, especially if they're like 10, 15 years into their career, of, hey, how much is in your pension right now? And they kind of look at you a bit blankly like, oh, I don't actually know. And it's not their fault, it's because they have all these different pots spread out from, maybe 10 years ago. They don't even know where it is anymore. It makes it very hard to get kind of picture of your retirement. So yeah, combining your pensions is one way to kind of beat that and to make complete control of your finances. Okay, here's where I am and here's what I need to do.
On average, how much would somebody need to have in their pension pot to live comfortably in retirement?
Okay, so this is a very tricky question because obviously it will vary a lot by your personal circumstances. There are a few kind of general rule of thumbs that we like to use to give people a bit of guidance on it. So one way to think about it is when you retire, to live kind of a similar quality of life to what you've got right now, you can aim for having between half and 2/3 of your current salary. That's because obviously when you retire, hopefully you might not have to pay things like a mortgage or might have to pay so much on commuting, so you can afford to have a little bit less. So you kind of work backwards from that and say, okay, I need 2/3 of what I'm earning right now, and then when you want to be retirement 60s, I need like 30, 40 years of income, you can kind of multiply it from that. Another way to think about it, again, just to kind of make it a little bit more understandable for people, is roughly speaking, so today to have what we call like a basics covered income in retirement, you need around £11,000 a year. So that's basically, you can afford any bills, afford like clothing and things like food and that kind of stuff get covered. For more of a kind of a bit more flexibility in your retirement, you might think about having between maybe £21,000 a year. So that means you can afford a bit more luxuries, maybe go like a holiday abroad a year. And then if you want more of a kind of luxurious, classic cruising retirement, shall we say, you want to aim for around £32,000 to £33,000 a year. That'll give you enough to say to buy things like a new car, go on several holidays a year, and just kind of live the kind of retirement that you want.
So just think about that cruise when you're kind of concerned about what to do with your pension. What happens when you decide to retire and take out your pension? And is this a different process for each pension scheme?
So you have a few different options when you retire. It will vary by pension scheme. Basically, you can there's four main ways of withdrawing your money. So you have, first of all, is the lump sum approach, where you just go, hey, I've got my massive pension pot I built up by saving throughout my life, I want to take it all out now. You can do that and you'll get 25% of your pot completely tax-free. So that's just free money you can kind of use as you wish. But the remaining 75% will be taxed as income. So you might want to be a little bit careful. You can end up paying quite a lot of money in tax. Another way of accessing your money is something called drawdown, which is quite a popular method these days, where that gives you a bit more flexibility. You can kind of withdraw free money almost like an income in life, take out kind of how much you need as and when. And the good thing about this is you can still get that 25% tax-free lump sum, kind of pay for a car, pay for a holiday or whatever, but then obviously got the bases covered, you keep that income coming in over time. A third way is something called an uncrystallized fund pension lump sum, or a UFPLS, which is I think probably one of my favourite bits of financial jargon. Essentially what that means, it works in much a similar way to drawdown, where instead of taking a big sum out of your pension, you're kind of breaking it down and taking these little chunks over time. It's a bit less flexible than drawdown. You'll be a bit more limited around how much you can take out and how often you can take it out. But you do get 25% of each withdrawal tax-free. You'll be taxed on the rest. So it kind of works. If you think about it, it's the same as drawdown, but a little bit less flexible. And a final way to take some money out is something called an annuity, which I think a lot of people have heard of and maybe even associate with like a pension income. This is where you take your entire pension pot and use it to buy this annuity, which is a guaranteed income for the rest of your life. So a lot of insurance companies will offer these. You pay them the money and then they'll just basically, your pension's gone, you don't have to ever worry about it, and they'll pay you a set income for as long as you live, basically. And this is protected against inflation, so it will rise in inflation, which I know is topical right now. Again, a lot of people kind of like this because it's you have to worry about the stock market changes or anything like that. It's kind of a secured thing. But they can be very, very expensive. Obviously, the insurance companies want to make money out of it, so they will charge you quite a lot in order to have that kind of guaranteed income for the rest of your life.
And can you run me through the sort of different retirement ages? Because there are sort of different ages at which you'll get different bits of your funds, is that right?
Yes, that's right, yes. So yeah, the two main retirement ages you need to know about is the kind of personal or private pension retirement age and the state pension age. So right now the state pension age is 66, but that is rising to 67 very soon and is already scheduled to go to 68 actually in 2024, something like that. So yeah, it's kind of increasing over time. That's the age you can start getting the state pension payment from the government. And for any kind of workplace personal pensions you have, the current age is 55, well, that is scheduled to rise to 57 in 2028. So this again, that's the age any kind of workplace pensions you've got or personal pensions you've combined or transferred, that's when you can actually start accessing the money from them. So recently there was a bit of a hubbub where the government wanted to quickly jump to this new age of 57 to kind of access your money, and people were like, hang on a minute, I've been promised that I'm 55 and I'm, like early 50s now, I'm getting ready to prepare for my pension. So most people that are kind of approaching the age of 55 now will still get to withdraw the money from the age of 55. But for most of the rest of us, you have to wait until we reach 57.
Okay, so even if you've already been paying into your pension and things like that, it's likely that the age will go up, right?
Yes, yeah, and so there's a kind of regular yearly reviews the government do on the age you can actually access your money. So it's quite likely this will increase even further in the future.
So, final question. For someone looking to build their pension for the first time, this is their first sort of look at their pension, how do you suggest they get started?
Okay, I think most important thing is just to get started. I think, look around there. There are many different pension providers. If you're in full-time employment, go and speak to your HR team and ask about, hey, how does pension work? And kind of understanding the different pension plans you have choice of. Particularly if you're young, and we've spent a lot of time talking about growth and risk over time, we would always recommend choosing a riskier plan now, because you can kind of look at it and I think people get perhaps put off investing, when you hear the news like about, this pension fund has dropped, the stock market's in free fall, and they go, I don't want to risk that. But the pension for most people is the longest term investment you'll make in your life. And with that time becomes plenty of time to actually ride out any kind of dips and volatility. Anytime it goes down, there's a lot of time to recover and actually benefit from the rebound as it grows. So I definitely recommend choosing a riskier fund now while you're young and getting it sorted out. And then the final thing about getting started is just, and this is a very difficult thing to do, again, particularly if you're young, is just think about, okay, what do I want my retirement to look like? Kind of plan out what you want to do, the kind of things you want holidays, if you want to spend money on new cars, if you want to kind of live life in the fast lane a little bit. That's going to mean you're going to need more money in your pension now. So just kind of working out, okay, how much I can reasonably save and planning backwards from what kind of retirement you want, planning out how much you can save from there and just kind of start contributing on a regular basis.
And if your plan was to change over the years, in your early 20s, you want all the luxury, you want the caviar and the jet skis, and then you get into your sort of 40s, 50s, and you're like, actually, I just want a little cottage in the countryside. Is there flexibility to sort of change as you go along? You're not stuck with what you chose in your 20s.
Absolutely, yeah. Pensions again these days tend to be a lot more flexible than they have been in the past. That means that you can change how much you're contributing, change if you want to do a top up. For example, if you've got a big bonus or a pay rise, you can put a larger sum in your pension. And I mentioned before, you can switch those plans anytime to a less risky plan, or if you want to switch to something like a sustainable plan, you're free to do that as well. Alternatively, if you want an even bigger change, you can switch your plan to a new provider. So you might have even more options for your pensions, or doing something like a SIPP, where you can get really kind of nitty gritty. I want to choose my individual investments. So it's getting a lot easier than it has been to kind of take complete control of your pension and kind of build it the way you want it to be built.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Kyle.
Thank you.
Really informative.